So our last session is offered by the School Culture and Climate Initiative. So you're going to be hearing from Dr. Patricia Heindel and a little bit from me as well, because Trish and I are co-directors and co-founders of the School Culture and Climate Initiative. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint. So can you all see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So that's us. And in a minute, we will be, letting you know a little bit about the School Culture and Climate Initiative. But as you can see from this slide, both Trish and I wear a couple of hats. Trish wears many hats. So Trish, do you just want to say a quick word about what you do at the university?
Sure, thanks. And thanks for being here, everyone. And go SEL Day. Yeah, I am a professor of psychology and dean of the College of Professional Studies here, but I founded about 14 years ago a Center for Human and Social Development. And out of that center, we've been doing a lot of work supporting schools to assess and address school climate, infuse social emotional learning into schools and district-wide. And so the center houses the work that Liz and I do together, which you'll hear about in a minute. And I also co-direct an online academy for social emotional learning in schools with Maurice Elias. And some of the things that I'll be talking about is incorporated into our certificate program in school leadership for infusing social emotional learning and addressing climate in schools. So great to be with you, and I'll be talking with you soon.
Great. And if any of you are interested, we have our email addresses here, as well as our website, School Culture and Climate Initiative, or schoolcultureandclimate.org. We're just going to skip over that, or actually, if you feel like it, you could put in the chat like your favorite SEL word for the moment. Like at the moment, we did that this morning and we had some wonderful words. So feel free to put in the chat your favorite SEL word at the moment, given that it is all about SEL Day. So as Trish mentioned, today we're going to be talking about different SEL implementation strategies, how a framework really helps the work become just have greater impact, just more efficient and more sustainable. And then we're going to be sharing a bit of an example of a specific framework. So a little bit, Trish mentioned we were based at the Center for Human and Social Development. Well, the School Culture and Climate Initiative, since the center was formed about 14 years ago, we've been offering a wide variety of supports and resources to schools throughout New Jersey and farther afield. And it's something we love doing. We've been connecting schools and educators for all of those years through a couple of things we'll be talking about in a minute. But we do have a school climate assessment lab, and because we have the resources and the supports there, we can help with interpretation of other surveys, like the new New Jersey Sky Survey from the Department of Ed as well. So, and then we have a 3-year school climate improvement process, which is a 3-year really intentional approach to sustainable school climate improvement. And of course, it's data driven, and we've had 140 plus schools in New Jersey complete the 3-year process. So we have all sorts of things for all sorts of schools, and we just love working with all of you. So the pillars of the initiative, again, we support, we connect, and we empower. We're going to be talking, about connection in just a minute. And then the support and the empowerment, those pillars of the initiative, Trish is going to be drawing from our experience in those areas to talk about SEL climate and a framework a little bit on in this presentation. But as you can see, we have a wide range of resources and supports that go quite deep in supporting schools and making the schools places where everyone can thrive. So we have wonderful ways that are at no cost to connect schools and colleagues within schools and across schools. So the School Support Network was founded about 10, 12 years ago now. And the whole idea was to provide shared professional development that's topic focused, as well as provide a venue, a format, a table for people from different schools and different roles to come together. And it's been really, really successful. We were in person up until COVID. In March of 2020, we went virtual. And so the School Support Network meetings are now virtual, and they're monthly, except with one exception we'll be talking about in a minute. And these are free, and we get the best people to provide the special professional development, including Dr. Elias, Patrick Fennell, and many other people you may have heard of in the past. So it's great. So I don't know what happened to my box here, but in any case, we have other opportunities to connect educators, which are coffee chats and job lot like coffee chats, which we have a number of them coming up. So coffee chats are very lightly facilitated sessions where anyone who's working anywhere in the realm of social emotional learning, positive school climate, a trauma-informed approach can come together and just basically share how things are going, pose questions to the group, get advice, sometimes just share a success or commiserate occasionally if life's a bit hard. So those coffee chats, anyone is welcome for the general coffee chats. We have 2 more still scheduled for this year. They're Wednesday mornings. But then in addition to that, we have job specific coffee chats, one for school counselors and one for administrators. And sometimes school counselors, administrators, they often attend the coffee chat, the general coffee chat as well. So these are not exclusive sort of opportunities. And the school counselors, that's a very robust group, and they love kind of getting support from one another, and the administrator one as well. Sometimes the administrators, if there's any of you on or listening, kind of sometimes, a little bit removed. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to talk about things that are important to you. And then our school support network meetings, we are virtual, except we're not for this coming school support network. It is in person. It's the same format that we used years ago before COVID. The topic is, what does DEI in educational practice truly look like? It's something we're so excited about this. And that is in person at St. Elizabeth University. And what we will do is we'll be sending out, along with the follow-up pack, some links so that you can register. And then in April, which is virtual, how to get the most out of your school climate data. And then on May 17th, maximizing educator well-being. And I think all of these are free. They're 1.5-hour sessions. About an hour is professional development. The rest is a chance just to get caught up on what all things SEL and school climate in the state, as well as, a chance, if we have time, to just connect everyone a little bit. So these are all free. You're all very welcome to attend. They've been going for quite a while. So moving on, because we don't want to take up too much time, is that whenever we work with schools, we step back and we think, well, what's the big question here? And the big question is, like, how do we create school environments where everyone feels connected, where everyone feels safe, that can set up all kids for success, not only in school, but in life? And the life is an important piece here, because it's not just about what happens until the day you graduate in 12th grade. We're raising children for their entire lives. And we love this quote by Frederick Douglass, that he wrote this in a letter, over 150 years ago. It is easier to repair. Oh, sorry. Something's happening with it. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. And how prescient was that? It was true, over 150 years ago in very different circumstances in our country, and it is true today. So what a guy. So before we turn it over to Trish to really get into the details, it's just really important to understand the interrelationship and the interconnectedness between social emotional skills and a positive school climate. The really important piece to recognize, which I'm sure all of you do, is that the social emotional piece are skills, and those skills can be practiced, they can be taught, they can be learned, and they create the foundation of a positive school climate. How all those humans interact with one another and it's within a positive school climate that teaching and learning can happen, and everyone feels so excited to be there, a sense of belonging. They feel safe, there's positive relationships, and they can all thrive, staff and students. And again, diversity, equity, inclusion, one of the goals of diversity, equity, inclusion, we know, is to be in a school climate where everyone feels a sense of belonging and respect and safety and kindness. And a trauma-informed approach is just always good to have a trauma-informed approach, as Dr. Elias said in the previous session, to just about everything. So I'm going to turn it over to Trish now for the meat of our presentation. So there you go, Trish.
Thanks, Liz. And thanks for putting in your words, your SEL words. There's some great ones in there. So we're going to go through the next 3 slides really, really quickly. But they're here to reinforce and underscore what Liz was just talking about, the interconnectedness, having a holistic approach to SEL, school climate, and recognizing that that holistic lens or approach should not only think about these things with regard to students, but with regard to all adults as well in the building. So if go to the next slide, Liz. Liz, thank you. And then the next one. We know that right now we're dealing with teachers and staff shortages in schools. So it can't be stated strongly enough that supporting the adults and teachers' social and emotional well-being is critical, not only for their growth and their well-being, but also because of the research that shows that teachers with strong social emotional skills do stay in the classroom longer. They can do things that prevent burnout, like developing and managing nurturing relationships in the classroom with their students and regulating their own emotions. So just to kind of underscore that holistic lens, which is going to be a repeated lens through the rest of this, the time that we're together. So the next slide, Liz. So we do use the Castle 5 model in our work with schools. But regardless of what skills you have identified in your schools, if you're incorporating SEL, it is really critical to have and communicate widely what your model is. And over the years, there's developed kind of a word salad with regard to social emotional skills and competencies. So we just want to stress that clarity and sharing with a wide community what you are addressing when you're talking about social emotional learning with some clarity is important. And it's even more important now as we have some misunderstandings about what social emotional skills are and what social emotional learning is. And we know from parent surveys, for example, that parents are all react positively to having schools address what are called life skills for students. So having a model sharing specifically what we're talking about can help reduce those misunderstandings and create a shared understanding of what the goals are for SEL. Next slide. So what we want to suggest is that before implementing SEL, stepping back and having a framework is important. There are a number of different implementation strategies that schools have been using. And we just want to ask you to think about the decision-making process and choices that have been made in your school or in your district. So one way of implementing SEL is through freestanding lessons or an evidence-based program. And evidence-based programs are wonderful. But I would encourage you to think about why the decision was made to choose the particular program that was chosen, how that decision was made, by whom, and how much that freestanding lesson happening, whether the school counselor is delivering it or whether teachers are delivering it, how well those lessons are being integrated in more of the life of the school and the rest of the curriculum. And in a little bit, I want to share an example of an integrative unit that incorporates SEL outcomes to give you a sense of the difference that you can see when you are incorporating an SEL lesson into the curriculum itself. So freestanding lessons are great. They're achieving wonderful outcomes with kids in terms of developing their skills, but kids develop skills faster and stronger if they have the ability, more ability to practice those. If you were with us when Maurice Elias was just presenting, Maurice shared some general teaching strategies that incorporate SEL into the classroom. He shared a perspective taking pedagogy called yes, no, maybe that can be used to encourage students to understand perspectives, to hear and listen to perspectives of others. You can also do very specific things in the classroom to create a positive climate, taking a strength-based approach to your students, a strength-based approach communication style, encouraging students to co-create classroom norms that incorporate some norms for their behavior, etc. So SEL infused in the academic curriculum, we're going to take a look at in a little bit. And then school-wide SEL implementation, which is really what we want to focus on, is doing very systematic implementation holistically of social emotional skills building that flows from a systemic framework that's shared by the school community and created by the school community. So can you go to the next? So the importance of a framework. The next one. Oop, the other way. So a framework, we're going to suggest as an example, core values, but some other examples of a framework that can be the foundation for this work systemically, systems-wide, across your school and or across your district, can be something like Portrait of a Graduate. But the framework is the foundation and shared vision driver for implementation of SEL and climate work. So core values, and Doug Stetch in a wonderful presentation this morning shared some experiences that he and the teachers and students had at their school, creating core values, shared core values. Doing a core values exercise to create a set of shared values is one of the first steps in the School Culture and Climate Initiative process that we use, that's based on the work of Maurice Elias. Core values are the underpinning of every culture. Behavior is driven by the shared values that a community or culture has. In some school communities, what are driving the behavior of participants in that community are core values that may be more implicit. What we're going to suggest is creating explicit core values can be the cornerstone, the touchstone for expectations around behavior, around how people interact with each other, set goals for students' development, teachers' development. So a core values exercise engages stakeholders to think about what are the 4 or 5 values that the community wants to demonstrate a commitment to through behavior, through policies, through commitments, through choices that are made and what's implemented in your SEL work. So you may have a set of core values in your school. If you do, it'd be great if you want to share some of those in the chat. Core values can be respect, for example, responsibility. The values can be the character pillars from character.org. But inclusive of all stakeholder input is critical because we all have to make a commitment in order for those core values to be demonstrated throughout the school and throughout engagement with each other. It should flow from the mission and vision of the district, and then it should align with your SEL implementation and choices of what you're trying to attain in your SEL implementation. Next. So the core values should then be seen in important pieces of of documents, of communications, and school-wide and district-wide. The core values should drive what's in the strategic plan. What's in the strategic plan should align with the core values. Communications should align with core values. How stakeholders are engaged should align with core values. District policies, looking at your discipline and conduct policy. Is your discipline policy aligned with core values? When you're hiring and orienting new faculty, are the core values of the school district in that conversation? Next slide. I'm going to kind of quickly get to the example. And then creating a coordinating body to lead the SEL implementation. Having a coordinating body can be a table where staff and student voice is found. It can be the place that coordinates intersecting efforts. Once you have core values and you have an SEL implementation plan, you want to be able to see how aligned all your programs and resources and efforts are with the SEL plan. Matching goals and connecting with resources, and leading and coordinating the key elements and becoming really the voice of the SEL implementation process. Next. So just to summarize, before choosing an SEL approach, what we're suggesting is backing up to start with creating a framework that's the foundation for school and district implementation. It could be a set of core values that are then going to help drive what you select in terms of a program, if that's the way that you want to go in terms of implementing SEL, but should connect with then policy, strategic plan alignment, and having a coordinating body to be the place and the table for the work is important. And there are so many different committees and coordinating bodies in schools. Having an SEL implementation coordinating body should probably have representation from all of those other key committees that relate in any way to SEL and climate work. Next. So here's an example of an integrated social emotional learning unit. Liz and I review actions that are submitted to Sustainability for Jersey Schools under their heading of school climate and culture. So this is an example of a unit that was submitted by a middle school to get points for having a social emotional learning integrated unit. So it was a 10th grade chemistry unit, which is really interesting because we often think about SEL being easy to implement into elementary grades or into social studies. But here's an example of a chemistry unit, which is why I thought it would be interesting to share. So the unit was on matter, energy, and sustainability in living systems. It was a collaborative effort, which is wonderful. It's 6 teachers, 10th grade teachers collaborated to create the unit and then delivered the units also. They identified 3 of the SEL skills that they wanted to address in the unit: self-awareness, social awareness, and responsible decision-making. And then the SEL indicators that would show that the students had developed these skills included things like the students would accept ownership for decisions that affect the environment. They would show that understanding the perception of others is essential to develop social awareness. And next slide. And they identified the essential questions for the unit, the enduring understandings, and then they shared some reflections on what they thought the difference was in giving this unit now incorporating SEL. So the essential questions were, how do I impact the environment and how does it impact me? Self-awareness. Should accepting responsibility for the outcomes of my decisions matter to me? To others. The enduring understandings. An individual's identity is a product of the dynamic interaction between personal and environmental factors. And the next bullet, understanding oneself is the foundation for self-management. And the teacher reflections were wonderful. They really talked about how really intentionally incorporating the social emotional skills into the unit led to more student engagement in the unit. The students did reflective writing to address some of these questions. And so they reported that they really thought that the students were more engaged. But I love this quote, SEL was a vital part of the unit because it helps students understand themselves and the consequences of their actions on a global scale. So not only were the students learning about the environment and impacts on the environment, but they were learning about their own role in contributing to either protecting the environment or when or where their actions might be harmful. So they were more engaged. They developed these social emotional skills in a chemistry unit. So I just thought that was a really good example to share. And I'd love to hear, maybe if you want to put in the chat, if anybody else has an example that they would be willing to share. Next slide, please. So keys to sustainability of SEL efforts. We really want to share that having a common framework is one of the keys to sustainability. That's something that is communicated very clearly, that because of this framework of either here's a portrait of the graduate that we hope to all achieve and demonstrate, or having a set of core values that we want to demonstrate in everything that we do throughout the school. That framework is critical. It's critical for communication, for buy-in, for continually to keep the work on track. The core values creates your path. But in addition to that, several other keys to sustainability, including embedding SEL in the everyday life of the school, which is an outgrowth of doing some of the things that I shared earlier, making sure that the discipline policy, the conduct policy aligns with your core values and aligns with the SEL skills that you want students to develop. So does your discipline policy enable kids to reflect on and think about their behavior? Is that part of the process? Because that would be something that would be aligned in your with your SEL efforts. Integrated across settings, so not just in a standalone lesson, but integrated throughout the day for a student. Staff training is critical. Obviously, having the SEL skills development be developmentally and culturally aligned, giving students ample opportunities to practice social emotional skills, and delivered within a framework. But most importantly, too, is getting back to teacher and adults' social emotional well-being. Teachers and adults in the school community model SEL skills. Liz, I think for the last 2 minutes, back over to you. Liz, you're muted if you're talking. Liz, you're muted.
Great. Sorry about that, everyone.
There you are.
I lost my controls for a minute. In any case, thank you, Trish. That was just great. And congratulations on staying within time. So I think we'll wrap this up quite quickly. We're so grateful that you were able to join us. And there is a lot of many resources